The bourgeoisie has to be swept away. You know how many were swept away by Pol Pot, by Mao Zedong, by Lenin? What a wicked evil! What a filthy thing! Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise. She has no guide, no overseer, no ruler, but she provides her meat in the summer and gathers her food in the winter. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? O sluggard, when wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Look at the terrible result of LBJ's Socialist Great Society. This guy was a great, big, tall, hulking Texan with a big Southern accent, and he would literally get in the face of his opponents and lean down on them, pester them on the phone, and basically bring everyone to his will. And look what his will cooked up. Why shouldn't the sluggard be a sluggard if he can lay around and yawn and stand in line to get welfare, housing, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, disability payments, heating assistance, and every kind of entitlement under the sun? Does anyone think this is what Yeshua was doing in his carpenter shop? Welfare dependency and flight from work? Have you ever heard of the Protestant work ethic? You know, can you imagine all these adult men in America? They're not working, they're not seeking work. They have these wedlock children. They will not give the baby mama even the dignity of marriage. And here they are with this great LBJ society, and the entire United States seems to be drifting that way. The elections are looking real bad for anyone who is not a socialist, not a leftist. No, stupid, Yeshua was not a socialist. Can anybody say amen? Amen. Amen. Now, I want you to know that Marx believed that socialism was the intermediate stage between, well, actually just before the workers reorganize the economy so that there are no longer any economic classes and the state itself disappears. And then the final stage, communism, is reached in a utopian world where family and religion, the opiate of the people, have disappeared. Now, if you want to believe that, you might as well believe any fairy tale, friend. And here's the terrible thing. Hitler used this so-called Jewish threat, the Jewish Marxist, Trotsky, this whole thing. He was going to save Germany from communism. And so what did he do? In his anti-Semitism, he made the Jew very sinister. And then the Holocaust was slipped in under the rug, so to speak. And look at this wickedness. Look at how evil it was. And what were the rabbis doing? Were they preaching the Bible? Were they warning people about Jacob's trouble? Jeremiah 30 verse 7, were they preaching the word? They were not. And the coming storm, the time of Jacob's trouble, Isaiah chapter 56 verse 10. They weren't warned. They were useless watchdogs that cannot bark. Isaiah chapter 56 verse 10, Jeremiah 30 verse 7. The time of Jacob's trouble. They weren't warning. They were useless watchdogs that cannot bark. And they spent their time with the Talmud and the reasoning of men. And friend, you have to see that we have a failure of a brain. This is why you have to be saved. a creational light has to shine down in the dark cellar of your evil heart. God has to do this. If he doesn't do it, you will have a failure of a brain, and you'll be falling for all of these ideologies. Take no trust in princes, it says in the Psalms. I think it's Psalm 146. Don't trust in princes. Don't trust in government. The government can't save you, friend. The government will not save you. And you know, when I was a little boy, thinking about my tricycle and my runaway kitty named Maggie, and all those little tiny childlike concerns that you have, at the very same time, many thousands of miles away, there were some men in the docket of the Nuremberg trials, and they were accused of war crimes, and many of them were going to be hanged, and the hangman was incompetent. He built the hangman's contraption so that first of all, the trapdoor was too small. They would actually hurt their faces as they fell, even though their face had a hood over it. And then, because it wasn't really modulated for their weight, they would have a slow 24-minute suffocation because their neck was not broken as it was supposed to be broken, because the hangman was incompetent. But what a easy death this was compared to the death that they subjected 6 million Jews to in the Holocaust. What an evil thing. But it says in Deuteronomy, in due time their foot will slip. In due time their foot will slip. And their foot was slipping while I was sitting on that tricycle. This was 1946. I was on Trustler Street in Oakland City, Indiana. They were in Nuremberg, Germany. And friend, I want you to know that when my parents would take me to the house of worship in the morning, as we were going, we were being mocked and ridiculed by this family next door. And they were saying, "Oh, you're going to the house of worship, but we're going to White River. We're going fishing. We're going swimming. We're going to have a good time. We don't need your God." It says in Deuteronomy, in due time, their foot will slip. White River was a brown river. It was a treacherous river with many currents and places where you would be waiting, and all of a sudden you would step into a deep place, and then the current would reach out with its cold hands and pull you under, and it would be death, and you would be gone. And so when we came back from the house of God one particular weekend, they were weeping because their little boy had drowned. In due time, his foot did slip. His foot did slip. To me belongeth vengeance and recompense. Their foot shall slip in due time. For the day of their calamity is at hand, and the things that shall come upon them make haste. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 35. Virginia Woolf, she was that stream of consciousness novelist. She was born into an agnostic family, and she spoke against our faith. She said, it is a self-righteous egotism. And she said, my Jew, meaning her husband who was an atheist, my Jew has more religion in one toenail, she said, more human love in one hair than your so-called faith. She stated that in her private letters. And therefore, this woman, one particular day, it was a day, a terrible day for her husband, Leonard. she threw the doctor overboard, so to speak. He was of no use. She wrote a suicide note to her husband, Leonard. If anybody could have saved me, it would have been you. Everything has gone from me, but the certainty of your goodness. The fool has said in his heart, in her heart, there is no God. You go west on State Road 56, past the junction with State Road 61 to Petersburg, and there you find the public launch site. And when I was 3 years old, people were going into that white river. And person after person was drowning. And right now, there are many people who are drowning, multitudes in the valley of decision. The phrase reprobate mind, I'm talking about Romans chapter 1, verse 28. It's the godless mind, the wicked mind, the debased mind that suppresses the truth, the reprobate mind, the unapproved mind, the rejected mind. Romans chapter 1, verse 28. God has to save you from your own mind, friend. You have to get a new mind. If that doesn't happen, you will never come to the Lord. Paul described two men named Jannes and Jambres. They resist the truth, men of corrupt minds, reprobate concerning the faith. 2 Timothy 3:8. So we're talking about a corrupt mentality. They profess that they know God, but in works they deny him, being abominable and disobedient, and unto every good work reprobate. Titus 1:16. So the reprobate mind is corrupt and worthless. And this is our biggest problem. Who will deliver me from this, not just this body of death, but this mind, this corrupt mind? You know, when you watch Hitler and his generals, they've got a great big table with this big map. And the poor little generals, they don't understand. I'm talking about Model and Rommel and Manstein and Dietrich and Guderian. I'm talking about these generals. Here's a picture of Hitler with his generals. And what they don't understand is he isn't going to be impressed by their facts. He's not operating in the realm of facts. He doesn't care about the facts. He has an ideology. He has a mindset, and that controls everything. Friend, this is our problem, a corrupt mind. It doesn't matter that there are 300 prophecies about Yeshua in the Tanakh. Those facts mean nothing to the reprobate mind. Those facts are not important. Any more important than the facts that Hitler's generals were giving him. He wasn't listening to them. And they were operating under the assumption that if they gave him enough facts, the facts would eventually move him. No, friend, facts do not move a reprobate mind.
Amen.
Facts will not move a reprobate mind. This is why there are people who are in theological seminaries who know all the facts, and they're still not believers. They are still not saved. They still have a reprobate mind. They still don't know the Lord. They still don't have his heart. Let this mind be in you that was also in Moshiach Yeshua. That even though he was the Son of God, he did not grasp an equality with God, but he humbled himself, took the form of a slave, and died the worst